Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here with David Andrews at iLobby. Hey, David, how's it going?
Oh, it's a good day. Nice and sunny here in Toronto.
Nice. Awesome. Tell me about iLobby. What do you do over there?
Sure. So iLobby is a facility management company. We're built for complex enterprises, a lot of them high security, everything from airports to manufacturing plants, facilities of all size, but particularly in complex enterprises. And essentially, we bring a whole bunch of visitor management and facility management tasks into one tool that you can access online and control from a dashboard. So it makes it nice and easy. You can get a paper trail that's audit ready together in just a few clicks. And some of that is things that would normally be almost impossible to do if you're using like a manual visitor logbook, for example. And on that same note, this is something where if you're taking in visitors and you're doing it in a manual logbook, a lot of the time, especially in high security environments, you're looking at like 10 to 15 minutes minimum to sign somebody in. In some cases, if there's enough documents they need, it can be up to an hour. But by using our sign-in kiosks, it just takes 1 to 2 minutes per person on average. And that's one of the things where we differentiate from some of the other people who do what we do, is that we're focused towards complex enterprises rather than being focused towards like office spaces or shared workspaces, that sort of thing. So part of it's just that size, security, but it's also that not only are we software, we're also the hardware. So it's like a white glove turnkey solution. And as soon as you open your box, you pretty much just put the kiosk where you want it and you're ready to go.
Sounds really interesting. And as somebody who's checked into many buildings myself and experienced the up to an hour kind of experience myself on the receiving side of that, I really appreciate what you're doing. I see on your website you have the Facility OS platform. Tell me a little bit about that. What kind of capabilities are in Facility OS?
Sure. So the Facility OS is actually sort of the platform of what we do as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got that like visitor management. It's got sort of the dashboard, everything you're clicking into. And when you're getting that, there's different aspects of it that are part or can be added onto. So we have the Visitor OS, which is of course, the visitor management, which includes everything from checking people in, but also you can screen people. So perhaps you have like government watch lists you need to be concerned about, or even maybe something custom, like working with one airport. There was like a list of people who was like, they weren't no fly, but they were people who was like, hey, we have had problems with X person before. So it's just a nice little way you can notify security right out of the gates that there's somebody there. You're like, okay, maybe we hold off for a second, or maybe we keep an eye out. But of course, you can also use that if you're integrated with like access control to just automatically deny, or even during a sign out system, you can assign it so that it won't print out, say, a visitor badge. And that is part of the system, is you can, or one of the options that can be included is printing visitor badges. And this is not only is it something that can be done from the kiosk, you can use pre-registration to send out in advance, and people can come and just scan a QR code to get on their phone after filling out all the information there, which can streamline processes even further. If you have like COVID concerns or stuff like that still, hey, it's a no-touch solution, so who doesn't love that? Outside the Visitor OS, we've got the Workforce OS, and that focuses more on like your workforce, as the name would imply. So you can be checking in who's there. You always know who's in your building. You can see when they came in. You can get sort of attendance and stuff like that as well. We have Emergency OS as well, and that one's currently in beta, but so far it's looking pretty good. And we have some things there that really set us apart from a lot of our competition. One of the things being that not only can we do mass communication, and this is all combined with like the facility management, which makes sure we know everybody who's signed into the building. So we're able to communicate with everybody. There's this emergency that's happening, or this update. Here's the mustering point information you know. Here's any evacuation points you need to know. And it's all right there immediately. But as I said, a big differentiator for us, we have that two-way communication. People can be like, hey, I'm safe, or hey, I was out of the building like 2 hours ago, you missed me somehow. Or even just being like, okay, I'm stuck, I'm here, which if you have your first responders coming, amazing information to know because they can get to you right away.
Definitely.
And then of course we have delivery OS, and that's honestly, it's a great way to avoid having packages just not get picked up and pile up or go missing. Very easy to use. This one can actually, I believe, stand alone. It used to stand alone. I don't know if it still does actually. But yeah, so the delivery OS, you can just have a worker like who's applied to it. They can be part of the mail room or not, just someone who's trained on the system, and it's super easy training. Essentially, they just scan the package in, can be done with their phones, and that'll track down the name of who it belongs to and take a little case of, hey, this is when this happened. Automatically, that person gets a notification, whoever the package is going to, that's like, hey, you've got a package here. They don't come pick it up in a few hours. You can send out another one and kind of keep that going day after day. If they're not picking it up, at least they're getting a reminder. Eventually, they're going to pick it up.
Yeah.
And once it's picked up, they're taken out of that system. So it's nice and clear. They stop getting those notifications. And all these notifications, and that goes for emergency and even the pre-registration, you can pretty much have them go to whoever you want and by all sorts of different channels. So commonly it's email or text, but also it can go on Slack, all sorts of messaging apps. Pretty much all the most common ones it can be
Very
used.
cool. I love all of that. Everything that you described, there's so many of the fragmented challenges that facilities have, especially larger facilities have all this fragmentation. And I love businesses that take these complex problems and fragmentation in the market and pull it together into one platform so you have visibility everywhere. Tell me a little bit about the origin story of the company. How old is the company? How did the company get started?
Sure. So the company actually goes back into I want to say 2016. And we actually started out another company. We had three people who were founders of the company who essentially had this idea that there was like a better way they could do X. In that case, it was more visitor management. They had this idea, and the company was kind of like, okay, go for it. And then they created it and kind of offshoot, and eventually they became their own separate company.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially it started out, they were really focused on visitor management. And so like that visitor OS sort of side of it is kind of where we were really focused. And as things have gone on, and with all the clients that we work with, we kind of realized like, hey, here's this thing we need to make a solution for. Here's this other thing we had to make a solution for. Yes. Like before Delivery OS, we had iLobby Delivers. So it's all kind of evolved, and now just recently we did like a little bit of a new look at how everything is and changed a few names around, but also it's a whole new approach to how we're doing it. And that's sort of where Facility OS evolved out of, because we realized what we needed wasn't so much just this visitor management tool, it was a facility management tool. And then the visitor management that breaks out underneath it with Visitor OS and these other aspects like workforce, emergency delivery. Yeah, that's sort of where we're headed.
Very cool. Yeah, I love the broader way to address the market with that. Tell me a little bit about the types of customers that you serve. Who are the kinds of customers that you work with?
Sure. So we work, as I mentioned, with like, it's generally complex enterprises. And we work for all sorts. So like there's manufacturing and industrial, and they might be concerned with things like tracking visitors who are in their facility, getting an idea of when they're there, where they're going, and who it is, what groups are there. Yeah, that sort of thing. There's oil and gas companies. They might have to be worried about screening sometimes, depending on where they are upstream or downstream. But even being large, they probably are still needing to manage the deliveries. They need to manage who's coming into the building, their workforce and their visitors in that sort of aspect. Then there's mining companies, construction companies. So this is something that can operate like indoor, outdoor. You can manage it at multiple sites, multiple locations, and all of that's done through one central dashboard, which is great. You don't need to have a million people to manage several different locations or even several different entrances. Warehouses are a pretty common one. We've done a few sports facilities, like major league ones. That's always, hey, that's exciting. We got some baseball teams. Nice. And as I mentioned earlier, alluded to earlier, we have some airports. Generally, the airport, it's more back end. So there's like maybe some VIPs or people who are coming in for training. The workforce itself, even a lot of contractors, and that can range from anyone who's building things to people who are coming in to clear out snow. Usually they need visitor badges. And within that, there's a ton of sort of compliance and things like that that they need to be concerned with. And iLobby is able to make ourselves work with a lot of compliances.
Yeah, that makes sense. And who at the companies are your customer? Is it like the VP of facilities management? Is it a CXO level employee, or who's usually leading the charge on the client side for you?
Sure. So that can vary pretty considerably, and it has a lot to do with what type of company it is and how large the company is. So like in some cases, if it's a smaller company, might be that C-suite level. A lot of times, if they have like a facilities manager, especially a senior facilities manager, we're probably talking to them. Security people are very common. We're actually just coming back from GSX, which was, it's usually a pretty dead-on target as far as we go for who we're working with and who's real interested in talking to us. But as well, like I said, there can be like HR. Yeah, we've got a pretty significant list of who might be talking to us, but those are sort of some of the common titles.
Yeah. And how are you growing the company? Where are some areas of growth for you that are working for you? You mentioned GSX, for example. Is it going to events, or is it online marketing? Or tell me a little bit about what works for you.
Sure. So where it started out from, which I think is probably the case with a lot of companies where it started out from, is like just making phone calls and pounding on doors.
Yeah.
The online marketing division is still relatively new. So there's a lot of efforts that are going out on that as well right now, but we're also trying to build out what events we're going to. So we were at a paper and pulp one back in the spring, GSX just now, and then we've got another, I think it's just a facility management one coming up in just a few weeks.
Great. And what are some things that make your company stand out from your competition?
Sure. So one of the things, as I mentioned before, is the fact that it's real turnkey. We aren't just software, it's also the hardware, and it's just about plug and play. You open the box and you're just about ready to go. It's very, very easy to use. Doesn't really take much time to train even people on the admin side on how to use it. The fact that the dashboard is accessible and you can set different admin permissions. So maybe you have somebody who just want to be able to be like, okay, you can grab these reports. Awesome. And maybe they're not the ones who have access to maybe denying entry, or maybe you want to bar someone from having access to certain reports. Easy. On top of that, we encrypt all the data. So it makes it easy if you have like strict, say, GDPR compliance to try and find a way to work with that.
Yes. Makes sense.
Yeah. And then we have like a very strong customer service team as well. We're a really customer service focused team.
And tell me a little bit about the business model. How do you generate revenue?
Sure. So it's a like recurring revenue style business. So you sign up, um, and we keep, I think, about 98% of all of our clients. People are usually very happy with what they get and the service they have. So
And is it like a per facility or per kiosk or per, what's the model per employee, or what's the model with the SaaS?
right. So it's we can look at locations, but it's generally however many kiosks you're putting in there.
I see. That's great.
And then if you use additional things, like we have thermal scanning cameras or like different types of printers, there's different things that can change how that sort of thing works. But as far as the general goes, it's okay, you got this. Great, you've got it. And then as long as you want to keep using it, you'll keep paying for it. People, as I mentioned, generally want to keep using it,
Yeah,
which is great for us.
fantastic. It's great for them too. That's wonderful. So I guess my last question is, you're doing some planning now, and I'm sure you have some goals lined up for next year. What would you like to be celebrating next year this time?
Sure. So from my own side, being on the content and marketing team, love to see our online presence and all that continue to grow. From the company standpoint, we've set some really strong goals in terms of sales and improvements, and also how we're growing these products. As I mentioned, we have Emergency OS is in beta mode right now, and we're looking in the very near future to get that out of beta mode and into the everyone have it mode. And that's one of the really big things. And I think that's going to help a lot of companies sort of achieve their emergency management and safety goals. So that's one of the things I'm really excited to see what we can do with in the near future.
That's great. And check a big box with compliance too. I'm sure there are a lot of compliance issues related to that.
Oh yeah.
That's exciting, David. A pleasure talking with you about iLobby. Appreciate that.
For sure. Thank you for talking to me.
Wonderful. Well, good luck. Thank you.